Good morning and welcome. Thank you for attending our webinar titled Step Confidently into AV. My name is Tara Tomlinson and I'm the Director of our Lighting, Data and Communications for EECOL Electric. Audio video is now an exciting addition to our data and communication portfolio. Warren Press, our technical sales specialist for the AV category, will deliver today's presentation. Warren joins our team with more than 3 decades of industry experience. He is highly regarded for his extensive expertise and unwavering commitment to both customers and vendors alike. I am extremely delighted he has joined our EECOL team. During his presentation, you are welcome to submit your questions in the Q&A section. We will address those at the end. This presentation and the Q&A session will be recorded and posted on the EECOL website under the What's On landing page, as well as on the YouTube channel. With that, Warren, I will turn it over to you.
All right, thanks, Tara, and welcome everybody today. That's a nice introduction. We've had a little change hardware-wise, so if I'm not looking at you when I'm talking and I'm looking over in this direction, it's just because I've had to set up a different monitor to do this. So, but we'll carry on and move forward to this. So indeed, Tara mentioned what my position is here. I joined EECOL last September, with the idea of indeed growing an audio division within the company. My formal training is in electronics engineering and digital circuit design, but and I have for the last 34 years, I worked in pretty much all aspects, residentially and commercially, of the audio video and typically more home automation side of the business. And I can honestly say, I mean, this last year's been really fun and exciting. I am excited to bring these top tier AV brands into EECOL, and ultimately with myself and the entire team to establish EECOL as as a primary and valued Canadian AV distributor right across the country. So again, most of you have dealt with EECOL for years, but just a little fun segue into this. EECOL Electrical Equipment Company Limited started 106 years ago in Moose Jaw, which is obviously where the name comes from. And it's expanded a little bit over the last century to the point where we've indeed got 65 branches across the country and over 1,000 EECOL employees involved. So obviously the company has evolved not only in the number of locations, but as we go through some of this, you'll be able to see that we've also evolved as far as what we're doing. So just on that note, again, the whole thing is, who is EECOL today? Isn't it electrical distributor? Absolutely is. It's been that pretty much from day one. But as I mentioned, the company has evolved, and obviously it'd be very fair to say we're also an automation or industrial automations distributor as well. Obviously, more recently, it's a renewables distributor. So obviously, when you're getting into everything from solar to our new EV charging and all the rest of that kind of thing, it's another part of what EECOL's evolved into. Obviously, it's full spectrum lighting distributor, whether you're talking high bays down to the watts, the permanent outdoor outdoor or holiday lighting, that type of product. A very big part of what EECOL is doing now is indeed in data and communication, and that is kind of the umbrella that the AV side of thing is falling under as well, because again, there's a limited amount of stuff these days, regardless of what type of area you're looking at, that doesn't actually have a data or an internet type of component to it. So that is a big portion of the company. Obviously, smart home products and everything from shades and lighting to a full-blown security distributor. So if you're needing access control or security cameras, we've got all of that. So yeah, you could say that EECOL is indeed evolved and is obviously covering a lot of different areas in the distribution side of things, and now obviously AV is indeed a part of that. So what we're going to do here is kind of touch on the fact that potentially, because again, we're not trying to push this on anybody, but potentially AV is indeed a great add-on if you're already working in the electrical space. It often ties in at about the same time. And whether you believe it or not today, actually there's a lot of similarities between the two of these things. But it's like anything in life. Obviously, you want to run or walk before you sprint. And you'll know from your own electrical experience likely you weren't doing hospitals as far as your first electrical project, and it's very similar when we come into the AV side of things. You're going to be doing probably something more similar to what's on the left-hand side of your screen, as opposed to some of the larger AV systems that you're seeing over on the right. So the interesting thing about this is, like I said, you didn't just start doing electrical without some level of training, and over time it's become second nature to you. But you've got a real benefit in the fact that you're already obviously understanding the concepts of a circuit, a load, a switch, watts, polarity, and current, etc. And again, if you look at a very, very basic electrical circuit, they're virtually the same thing. You're going to have obviously a load in this, which is the light on one side, it's a speaker on the other side. You're going to have a switch or a dimmer on one side. You're going to have a volume control or something along those lines on the other side, a variable volume control. A lot of this stuff translates over directly, as far as at least in concept. Now, if you're interested in the AV side of things, we're obviously happy to offer training to you, which is indeed a component that you need in order to get going in this side of the business. With that electrical knowledge that you've already got, you're not needing to start from zero. You've already got a good concept of what a lot of these things are. But again, the training typically would, much like any new training you take, we probably would start from close to zero. You're going to be able to probably pick it up a lot faster, and it'll be a lot easier for you to understand just even some of the basic concepts that are involved. Again, I know I can speak from personal experience. Lectures are great, but the longer you're sitting there in a lecture, the harder it is to, as far as how much you're going to be able to gain out of that. So hands-on is really one of the ideal ways of learning and getting up to speed. And that's indeed a component of what we're offering to be able to do this. And that'll be, in-person hands-on training events that will happen certainly regionally to get off the ground with this. As well as components of it that will be online training from both EECOL as well as some of our manufacturers. There'll be some live web training events, and there will also be indeed some recorded in CAN, where we're building a library of a lot of the stuff that you'll be able to do training at your own time and your own leisure. So at the same time, as you move through this thing here, and this will not be necessarily day one, but as you move through this, and some of these projects are getting to be not really simple, obviously we've got your back on that, both internally and certainly as we go out to manufacturers, to be able to give you some backup as far as what and how. That's not to say that we should ever short circuit this whole thing. It really is a training comes first, and then you do the projects. And a little side note here, obviously our goal with this is to provide you an opportunity, if it's something that it does indeed interest you. The goal isn't to try and push you in this direction if it's not at least a level of interest for you, because the fun part may not be the training up front. It's actually some of the stuff that you're doing with this, but it is sort of a chicken and the egg. You want to get some level of training so that you're comfortable. And I'd say, again, as much of the reasoning for that is, you guys do this for a living. When you get paid to do something for, in a person's home or in a company, you're indeed considered a professional in your trade. And the last thing you want to do is be trying to learn on, in somebody's premise as far as what and how to do this stuff. Learning on your own time. I know way back in my days as a teenager playing in a band, trying to build a lighting control thing for, for light shows for the band. I learned on my own, wasn't charging anybody for it, but I certainly tripped a lot of breakers back in the day trying to learn that stuff. But if I was to try and do this, obviously, and get paid for it, I would want to make sure I've got a certain level of training behind me. So we all know that whole concept of, knowing just enough to be dangerous. Well, we want to make sure you know enough that you're not a lot of this is dangerous, but that quite frankly, you're comfortable doing this and can deliver, for your customer and yourselves. So enough of the preaching. Basically, we're on to, what are the market opportunities for this stuff? And they basically span, from residential projects, to commercial and even the pro AV professional realm. And there are differences to each of those things. So we'll pop through some of this now. Leading into this, I guess, residentially, if you're working in that segment and you think about that, one thing to kind of keep in mind, even probably from your own experience, is people are listening to their favorite music in more places and in more ways than they ever have in history. It doesn't really matter where you are. Somebody's got some earbuds in, you're in the car, you're at the gym, wherever you're at, and people have the opportunity to be listening to what they like to, or listening to books as they're driving. So, and the same thing can be said about TVs and movies. We've got a lot of stuff that's happening out in the marketplace that's driving a lot more interest and focus on these type of things. And part of that is saying, well, what are those things? What's driving all of this stuff? And in the past, we were listening to radio or TV, or maybe we've had our own collections of movies or something like that. But there's a lot of things that have happened over the last number of years. A lot of the streaming services like Spotify and Netflix, etc., a range of them that are shown here, where people now have access to virtually all the world's recorded music, movies, television programming, and you can really watch this wherever, whenever you like, that type of thing. And, saying all of that, okay, that's a lot of how it's affecting people on a personal and a residential side of things. So if we look at that, you say, well, what are the opportunities for us, working in their homes and that type of thing? What are the opportunities for us to try and pull some of these things together? And this is where we started going to switch gears a little bit, where we're going to kind of delve into a bit more of the, the old picture tells 1,000 words. So, we'll go through these slides now, and they're basically going to give you sort of an example, what the opportunities are in these various segments. And with a little bit of, I'll give a little bit of commentary over top of it, but it's more for you to be able to identify where are these opportunities out there. And when we come over into the residential side of things, one of the most obvious is, indoor music systems, whether that's, wired into the home or wirelessly, for new construction or existing or retrofit, where people want to have music throughout their homes. This is an obvious tie into that, everything that we talked about in the beginning there, from where are people listening to music. Literally, if you come out of the car, you park in the garage, you can walk right inside and you can carry on the playlist right where you left off and have the music that you're wanting to listen to play throughout the house. Other areas that this ties into is indeed more desktop or even hi-fi systems, right down to turntable. So there's opportunities for people to carry on and have that access to the music inside their homes. Now that also relates to taking it outside of their homes, whether on the decks or patios or throughout a yard in their landscaping, that type of thing. And with that, the picture on the right here is showing you indeed a landscape type of product. That's a satellite speaker and in this case a buried subwoofer. They make them both surface mount and buried, but that's where you can literally go from somebody's backyard in the city. Doesn't have to be a huge property, but you can have music playing nice and evenly at a nice volume level, not bothering the neighbors, but everybody's got a nice quality of music where they're at. Expandable out to, again, if you've got people that are on acreages and they've got a large property, they might have a swimming pool and a sport court and a fire pit area and et cetera, and they want music either throughout or to be able to play in these various areas together or separately. And then we start to tie into, again, some of the interesting product of that is both lighting and audio and speakers included, like some that you see on the left here. And there's a variety of these types of products where you can add lighting to the back of a house, for instance, or even a commercial property, and not only bring lighting to those locations and throughout a property, for instance, but also bring music back into that same kind of a scenario. And of course, they would both be wired up at exactly the same time. So then we move over into indoor television and projection systems. Excuse me, and outdoor television and projection systems. Now, outdoor television, on one hand, could sound pretty simple. Just take the TV outside and hang it on the wall. The reality is, obviously, that's not a good idea, and that's actually a real issue or a real problem in the fact that not only taking an indoor TV that's not rated to be outside and mounting it on somebody's home can actually invalidate their home insurance and obviously create a liability for whoever did that for them. There are very specifically outdoor TVs, again, residentially or commercially, that are designed to be outside 24/7, 365 days a year. If they get dusty, you can spray them off with a hose. It's just a different animal altogether. And there indeed are products, obviously, if you're wanting more of a portable opportunity to take some of this outside as well. Again, portable, here's a perfect example of that. So again, there are even products where people say, well, you know what, I don't want a TV mounted on the outside of the deck, or I don't have any place to even put that, but I do have a hot tub, or I have a, an outdoor space where we're going to sit around the fire pit and I wouldn't mind watching the game. We do have products for that are portable. They're actually rechargeable, lithium batteries, so that you can run them up to several hours at a time. You can load content on them. So if you're going to go camping with the kids and it's a rainy weekend, which this one might be coming up, you can actually take some of those streaming videos, put them onto this television and take it out there, and you've got something to watch, even if you're nowhere near your internet connection inside the home, for instance. So residentially, we move into indeed the home theater systems, and these can be full-blown surround systems to even just better sound for a TV, because again, most of these flat panel TVs now really come with almost nothing as far as speakers that are quality to listen to. So, that can be indeed placing a couple of speakers in the living room with a sub, or in the case of the speakers that are on the left here, they actually even have subwoofers built right into them, to going with indeed full wired and wireless opportunities to add sound bars and surround systems. So a lot of different opportunities for where people might want to do surround sound or home theater. Like I said, both wired and wirelessly. That can extend even to the point of, again, dedicated theater rooms where people are wanting to do a much higher level of this type of performance. They're allowing space for their home and going to want a level of finishing and acoustics that go inside there. And you might be looking at screens of 120, 130, 150 inch screens to be able to create that theater environment. And then gaming rooms are becoming, or gaming spaces, regardless of whether it's a room or a space, are becoming really huge opportunities in the residential environment. These can be done anywhere from a television or to a large screen projector. Again, there are certain nuances that you need to know when you're doing this stuff. If you had somebody that wanted to be gaming, they're doing these first-person fighting, gaming, shooting type of games, you need a projector that's able to respond fast enough. Otherwise, they're not going to like playing on it very much. But, and those types of products can be used both for gaming and potentially for theater, although there's some real differentiators along the way. You can get into a gaming product at a certain price and it'll do theater at a decent level. You can get into theater products at a decent price and they will do an adequate job at gaming, but it's just to know there's a range of solutions based on the application and what you're trying to do with that. And then the sports rooms at home, which, again, whether it's politically correct or not, are often referred to as man caves. These can be really quite simple, from just some place to hang out with your buddies and nice big screen TV and some movies or some music, to indeed something way more elaborate like you're getting into here. And this is not an area where you would wade into at the beginning. This is where you need probably a fair bit of training, because that screen in that room that's on the left-hand side, that's not that different than trying to do an actual commercial sports bar, as far as maybe a little simpler, but it's a lot of the same complexity and parts and pieces that are needed to do this. And so again, it's not to say that if you're new to AV that these are things that you would be jumping in and doing right away. But if you were to want to go down this path and grow, obviously with some time and training and the desire, for the most part on your part, these are avenues that you could eventually grow into. Tip over into the commercial side of things. The big thing about commercial, as far as even that whole concept of putting music throughout spaces and that type of thing, is you are also likely adding in at least the component or the ability to add paging into the mix, and often you're also tying into life safety systems, emergency evacuation, so on and so forth, that type of thing. But we'll we'll go through a number of these scenarios here as well, sort of in the same format that we did with the residential. So restaurants, pretty obvious. Most restaurants we're in these days indeed have music playing in the background. Depending on the type of restaurant, they may indeed have a desire to do some paging as well. With some of these products, and commercially now some of the products that, you know, that we brought on to work in this space do multiple different things, because again, there is a legality liability situation when you start doing commercial businesses and having music played back in them. I mean, traditionally for a lot of years, it was kind of do what you like and it's all good. Over the last number of years, especially with all of the streaming and all of the stuff we talked about earlier, you know, the artists that are doing this stuff and recording this music have sort of only a small method of getting paid. And if their product is being used in these commercial environments, there is indeed regulation and industry rules and laws now that literally you should be using a service, you know, that is going to pay, you know, it's usually microscopic, but a small royalty back to these artists when they're going into these environments. So again, I can't say that, you know, even the majority of restaurants and stuff out there are necessarily being done the correct way, but there is a lot of crackdown that's been happening on this. So anyway, the point of all of that is there are indeed commercial products, commercial streaming products that offer just the ability for you to have a licensed way of playing music back in these environments. The next, you know, the next level of service that they can offer is where they're indeed, you know, providing curated playlists, so that Bob the bartender doesn't have to be the one who's, you know, selecting the music to play in here. They can provide that back to the establishment, and it can even change on schedules, on times, days, weekends, that kind of thing, what kind of music's being played. And then the next level of that is actually depending on the type of environment. It doesn't necessarily be restaurant, it could be a commercial or a retail environment where they're actually able to provide advertising or voiceover type of content that's doing something to support the business that it's in. Anyways, that kind of carries on all the way through here. So again, just more examples, whether it's salons or coffee shops. You know, sports bars are a big one. There's a lot of audio video in there. Like I said, this is not particularly a starting point, but you know, you're doing music, you're doing a lot of video distribution, and potentially paging inside of these type of environments. Offices and common areas, there's multiple things that are done in this. Some offices are completely quiet. They don't want any music playing in the background. Some want it played everywhere. Some want it just in public areas, that type of thing. A lot of offices still do want paging capabilities, and there may be, again, that need to tie in with, you know, any emergency systems that are in there. But on top of that, that brings up another subject, which is sound masking. You know, and that picture over on the left is probably one of the not main, but probably one of the, you know, common examples of where sound masking is used when we have open offices, and it might be a mix between open offices, meeting rooms, closed offices, where you're trying to keep some level of privacy, if you will, in between all of the various conversations that might be happening inside here. So again, if somebody's in one cubicle and they're having a conversation, they're not necessarily wanting that conversation to be, you know, to be heard and understood while somebody's trying to work in the next cubicle doing exactly the same thing. And then that can also, again, more move out in just public areas where you indeed want that music and potentially paging opportunities. Sound masking, this is really where it starts to step up, and a lot of us can maybe identify with even the what or the why you might want this. If you've been in and again, there's tons of opportunities because this is becoming more and more of a prevalent concern, if you will, with regards to privacy of your own information. Everybody has been indeed at the pharmacy. People are lined up there, and you're there talking about a lot of details, private information. You're giving out information, and they're asking you questions. And it might be nice that you had some level of privacy between you and the pharmacist or even the receptionist at the medical counter. That's, you know, that's not tied into what everybody else in line is listening to, whether they're playing with their phone like that guy, or obviously the second guy in line is kind of going, I'm listening in here. That's where sound masking can come in and obviously provide that level of privacy between, you know, who should be sharing this information and who should maybe not be overhearing. Same thing with banks, a lot of that kind of thing. So commercials expands off into, indeed, nowadays, everybody, a lot of what we're doing right here is, you know, remote meetings, conferencing, huddle spaces, indeed full boardrooms. And then there are some drilling down besides just needing to be able to do that. There's obviously, you know, certain types of environments where you're trying to create a very specific, like Zoom rooms and Microsoft Teams rooms and that type of thing. So again, part of this is it could be just as simple as, you know, putting in a single device for these smaller rooms. But as you get into the larger applications and you're trying to bring a lot more people and a lot more locations and the ability to share and all the rest of the stuff, you're wanting help with actually creating more of an engineered or design room where you've got some, you know, design and engineering support behind you when you're doing these things. So again, those are things that we've brought into the mix and made part of our product assortment. Again, going back now and just into retail. So again, indoor music and paging, gyms and fitness facilities, again, typically indoor music and maybe a bit more of a video environment. Manufacturing, industrial. So here's one where we don't necessarily look at this and go, yeah, I think of audio video, but obviously in these environments might be very noisy, might be, like I said, manufacturing environment, that kind of thing. There is still a need for an audio component in here, sometimes even a video component, but an audio component where you're needing to indeed do paging, do announcements. Maybe there's emergency notifications, could even be just shift changes and that type of thing. That can extend through into just a lot more even common applications of warehousing, where there would indeed be that paging and emergency messaging. Weirdly enough, there is even actually audio background music scenarios for applications like this. It probably just depends on the type of distributor, the type of warehouse, and how, you know, how much noise or how much stuff is going on in there. But even right in our own market here, I've been involved in the past of both paging and background music, even in warehousing environments. So again, if you start looking at all the various applications, vehicle showrooms, equipment lots, this is again for indoor, outdoor music and paging, that type of idea. Restaurants and hospitality. So again, this is showing more of an outdoor application where, yeah, for even here in our short summers, and this one's been an interesting one, but in our short summers where you want to be able to take and enjoy as much time as you can out on the patio and that type of thing. And that can involve both audio or music and even video. And again, that's the whole thing where up here we need to know, what we're installing, are we okay to leave that out there all year round, even in our winters and stuff? And indeed, we have some of the products that, you know, you can say yes to those type of scenarios. Resorts and hospitality. So again, this is a big AV opportunity, is indeed that hospitality or hotel resort business, that kind of thing, and that can be both indoor and outdoor. You know, from meeting spaces to wandering around the grounds of a resort, and they may indeed, in this case, we've got some of the outdoor low voltage lighting and audio products, so you can have music playing throughout the property as you wander around. You know, and again, it may be just where you've got a hot springs type of area, and they may want music around the pool and indoor out of the environment that you're in there. So again, golf courses. It's funny, my son told me the other day, I haven't golfed too much in the last number of years, but he told me the other day that people are indeed generally driving around with Bluetooth speakers on the golf carts, and I'm going, really? I didn't think you would be it would be kosher to be playing music out on the golf course. But certainly when you're inside in the pro shop and in the, you know, in the facilities of the golf course, there would be music, there would be paging, you'd be coming, you know, somebody up this particular group up to the tee box, so on and so forth. This steps into another direction here where we've brought in products. I will say right up front, we haven't brought in at this point, you know, golf and sports simulators, but we are providing indeed a number of the hardware. We've got the #1 projector brand in the world for doing simulation applications. So whether that is indeed for golf sims right out into more of the automotive and or the aeronautical simulator market, that kind of thing. So, excuse me. Then we tip over now into more of the video side of things, which is indeed potentially video walls and or digital signage. And again, this is a really growing and expanding market. If we take a look at this meeting room, could be boardroom, I'm not really sure what that application is, but they've got both a video wall in that particular application, as well as some displays for more of the breakout meeting content, that kind of thing. But then the digital signage could be something completely different, and it's going out into larger displays, maybe in the, I don't know if this is could be a transportation hub, could be in a shopping mall. So, but there's all kinds of applications for this, both indoor and out. Obviously, we've all been into fast food restaurants. They've all moved towards, video menu boards. So that's, again, another very common application. And with a lot of this digital signage, again, it's just to be aware. This could be a mom and pop shop where they're doing their own thing and they just need to manage their own signage of what they want inside there. It could be a small town where they're doing some of their own stuff and there may be advertising various other things going on in the community in there. So they're going to manage that themselves. On the flip side, it could be a national chain and they want to have somebody at one location somewhere in the country and they're able to make these rolling changes and have that run out to all of their locations right across the country. Different means and different opportunities there. Then you go over, obviously, into hotel environment, be a place where now you're starting to see multiple forms of this digital signage being used. It could be the events that are going on at the hotel that day, some weather for the travelers, so on and so forth. It could be the departure schedule for the airport, and then even maybe a news feed or something along those lines. Excuse me. There's some very unique shape displays in the digital signage side of things available for both indoor and outdoor use. And again, all very much the same thing. Can be one-off, they can be national or international as far as what their message is. On the digital signage, it steps into the next category of that, which is indeed touch interactive displays. And that could be anything from the shopping mall, just trying to figure out where's the store that I'm looking for. That could be static, but it could also be where you're able to indeed do a drill down and look up, for instance, could be in a museum, so on and so forth. And as soon as you start talking interactive displays, then the first thing that comes to mind in a lot of cases is the whole K to 12, that whole industry has essentially moved over to using essentially interactive whiteboards that are also full screens, can do video, they can do just about everything under that one environment, and yet use it again, just like a whiteboard or a blackboard, be able to go up there and just write on the board as part of what's going on in the class. And then that extends out to, again, in the higher education, college, university, etc., that type of thing. Again, some of the same things, but you're also moving out to, again, a bit more larger audiences where you're maybe needing projection and screens involved in that. Interactive displays also have corporate applications, could be anything from, again, a bit of a directory inside of a business to you're drilling down with meetings at one or multiple locations. People need to be able to interact and be able to, show and point in various things to the screen and be able to save some of that information. So that's taken us through residential and through commercial. Taking a look at the time, we're still okay here. So we'll pop through the professional stuff with some examples in the same kind of format, and then we'll get to where we can maybe ask some questions towards the end here. So on the professional side of things, this is really, or pro AV as it's often called, this is where you're indeed adding a live component into what's being done. And so with that, that is straightforward enough. That could be just a microphone as being part of the mix. And again, not specifically from a paging perspective, but a good example would be, we've all been in an area where there's indeed a PA system and somebody walks up to it and they start either blowing into the microphone or tapping it, bang, bang, test, is this on? Even just doing some of those simple things gives such a, and we've all experienced this, gives such a very hard, sharp attack, and sometimes it's extremely loud burst of sound or energy. And when you delve into the pro side of things, there's several things you need is speakers, for instance, that are capable of handling that kind of thing. A lot of live music and or live microphones have, these very sharp, high energy attacks that can happen through the speakers. And, residential product and even a lot of commercial product can't handle that, and you will actually potentially damage the speakers being used in there. So commercial speakers are designed differently, not only to be able to handle some of that, but also to be able to play at the levels that you might need, some very loud applications, and also to be able to distribute the sound out wide and or deep into a space. So again, just various things that you're needing, and that we've put together for this stuff is everything from wired and wireless microphones. So that could indeed be, somebody giving a speech at a particular place, but it is indeed just, even the spin instructor here giving a feedback to the group that is doing the event that she's at. Corporate and public venues are, again, a huge application for pro stuff. On a subtle level, it could be where there's a little, there's in this hotel environment, they could have a regular piano and singer comes in and they've installed a basic PA system in there to be able to handle that. But I can see they put a couple of other components in here. They could actually even add a little trio or quartet come in and have the whole thing mic'd and or tied back into the PA system if they need to. You go into a public space like this, and this could be as it's set up right now for a talk and a communication session, but you could also have potentially a live actor band playing back in this type of environment. And it's been set up with that line array type of product that's in there to be able to cover and properly distribute that to all the people in this place, including all the different levels and depth of that space. Obviously, sports facilities, a big one. These are in every town and community, everywhere that all of us live. And again, this is one of those areas where, again, right from day one, when we were talking about some of this stuff, probably the more remote that you actually are located, the more that there's an extremely good chance that you could be the solution provider for a lot of these things. You're obviously going to be doing a lot of work in these types of facilities already. And again, the smaller the town, the more likely it is going to be that, they're going to ask somebody that they already know if they have the skill set or if they're interested and whatever else. And again, we're wanting to back you up with indeed providing you, that knowledge, that skill, and the comfort level for ultimately you to be able to say, yes, I can do that for you. Houses of worship, whatever the denomination this might be. These provide all kinds of opportunities, but also a lot of challenges. Some of them can be just in smaller rooms, school gymnasiums, low suspended ceiling type of applications to indeed, more purpose-built facilities. But beyond that, they also have a variety of different needs. That could be basically just somebody giving a speech and talking, and you need the entire congregation to be able to hear what's being said, to the point where you indeed also maybe have a video component, you're wanting to be able to bring something up there that people are able to follow along with, to the point where you may have a choir in this, and it's large enough that you need to mic the choir, to, again, as I think we can see off in the left-hand or right-hand screen here, there's actually a band that's set up to be able to play in here. And again, depending on the size of the facility, that may need to have a component of planning as far as how this is going to be done, how it's going to be played back. Outside of that, you've got very specific product that can go into a meeting, town council chambers, those types of things where you've got these chairperson delegate type of systems. So obviously there is the speakers, there's a PA, everybody's got their own little mic there, but with these types of systems, there is the opportunity where, the mayor could, they can engage or disengage people's microphones, that type of thing, give permission for people to, have their chance to talk, and that may be around the dais here, or it may be out where you've got town or city people coming and they want to voice their stuff, and they may want to have the ability to control those microphones on a running live basis. Large venue projection, so education, public events, a couple examples here. These images are images that I think have come out of a couple different applications. I would have to say that in some of these cases, you probably would never actually want to install things the way they are here, but they're trying to show off a concept. So, when you're looking at an image that, has got multiple screens, multiple projectors, a very large space, you probably wouldn't place the projectors right in the middle of the room, hanging right over everybody's head. Doesn't matter whether you've got a 300-inch screen, you're probably going to want to put that, and seating for a couple hundred or a few thousand. You probably want that projector at the back of the hall, up and out of the way, so it's not directly over somebody's head. And that's indeed, again, some of the components that we've brought in, and we need, much higher brightness projectors, interchangeable lenses, so we know where we want to put that projector, and we can place it, out of line sight and out of being directly over people's heads. But again, you know, everything from maybe it's a a town combined meeting facility right out to educational facilities, applications for that. So we're getting out of those opportunities and more into some of the nuts and bolts as far as what do you need to be able to do some of these things. And indeed, you know, all of these audio products have, you know, all of the hardware and accessories needed to be able to install them, mount them, so on and so forth. And that can be everything from, you know, that large line array right in the center of needing to be able to figure out how are these things being installed and hung from the ceiling of a, you know, of a sports arena, to somebody's wanting to put a, you know, a sound bar underneath their TV, for instance. You know, so there's a whole range of options that are solutions that are needed to do the complete project kind of thing. That also translates over when you go into video and or security applications. So again, when you walk in and you're in that fast food restaurant and you don't necessarily even think exactly how did they put all of those monitors and line them up and make sure they're all able to tilt together and line up, there are very specific products for that. Same thing with video walls. You know, when you put a video wall together and you've got 9 or who knows, 9 or 18 different panels in there, there still is the need to be able to get in, adjust, service, you know, one that's right in the middle. So they're very specific displays for that. Ranging right out to indeed monitor mounts. There's so many applications now for needing to mount monitors in just a plethora of different applications. So we've indeed got a really broad range of some basic mechanical right up to some of the gas assist, multiple different monitor type of displays, and every way of mounting a television, for instance, as well, or projectors from ceilings. So there's a lot of solutions there. And then again, another avenue that we don't necessarily think of a lot of times when we talk AV, we should be able to wrap up shortly here, is indeed the treatments, the things that go and try and make the room actually work better for these AV purposes. So we've partnered with a couple of different companies that do these type of solutions, you know, from basic fabric wrap acoustical panels to in the center there, you're seeing some both wall, and those are called cloud panels that can go into rooms to try and soften that sound that's inside there or make it less harsh or reverberant. You've got panels that can look more decorative, like indeed some of the slat wall looking product there, very, you know, available in a variety of different finishes. But you can create a visual effect in the space and also be dealing with some of the acoustics. And then along the bottom there, you're seeing some very custom, built on site type of products. And some of the next pictures that we'll show here will give you some feedback. But just so that we understand, this is about the only technical thing we're going to talk about today, but just to understand these acoustic treatments. This little picture is showing a very simple, a residential kind of environment. So if I'm sitting my butt on that couch and I'm listening to those speakers, clearly the sound from the speakers, as in those little orange or copper colored lines, is coming directly at me. And I'm hearing exactly what's coming out of the speakers. But in a very simplified thing, it's also bouncing off the walls, the floors, the ceilings, the back wall, coming back. So there are a lot of reflected sounds that are basically happening in this space. Residentially, it's not usually too terrible unless you're trying to do again, more of an audio or a home theater type of application where you really want to go, I would like to hear exactly what that person's saying in the movie, not what are they saying, all the rest of that kind of thing. So we want to deal with the directed sounds. So when we look at this outside of that really simple residential example, there is applications in all three of those areas that we talked about, residential, commercial, and even pro. So a little picture on the left there is somebody's, I believe that's probably a home theater system. So they put some panels on the walls to stop some of those first reflections. The restaurant, the next picture over there, these are acoustical panels that are available to be printed or painted. And they can actually add a art environment to that space, but also help with the noises and the reflections and all of the chaos sounds that can be going on in a busy restaurant. Obviously doing much like what we're doing here. The next picture over shows, boardrooms and meeting rooms where, it's important even inside the room, but it's doubly important when you're starting to, broadcast out to people in other locations and also get their feedback back that, the room isn't a noisy, echoey room. And you know what, that's probably the best way to describe this stuff. If you've ever been in a basement, a car park, a school gymnasium, and you know just how live or how echoey that is. And, you know, there's an old thing of clap your hands in there and you can actually just hear the little bit of echo that's coming off of that. That's sort of the worst case environments for audio or for sound reproduction, because it's just going to smear all the sounds like crazy. That last one is indeed more of a restaurant bar application with some cloud panels on there. I'm going to go through just a couple more slides and then we should be able to wrap ups for some questions here. So just a few more examples. Here's an open office area, probably a concrete pad on the floor, and everything else is drywall or hard surfaces. So in this case, some acoustic panels have been put on the wall and baffles hung from the ceiling. You know, reception area, I'm not really sure what this business is, but they've done a combination of some of the solid color. I mean, these are panels that can be cut to size. There are obviously a lot of standard sizes, but that and some of the slat wall type of product to probably create a much nicer environment inside there. An office working environment. This has got a mixture of some of the slat wall and even the matching wood-looking baffles that are along the top to try and deal with the hard surfaces and the glass and steel and bricks. Here's a really, really common one. Like I said, not all churches are typical, you know, pictures like we saw earlier. They're done in all kinds of spaces. And when you have these large spaces, lots of depth, there's the ability for somebody speaking up front, or even worse, if there does happen to be a band involved, where you're talking and the length of time, even though speed of sound's pretty quickly, the length of time it takes for that sound to go and start bouncing off that back wall or those side walls and reflecting back and hitting all of the people in the audience, it really screws up what's called dialogue intelligibility. It's very hard to differentiate the direct sound that somebody's trying to talk to you and all of these delayed sounds that are arriving at you. So again, acoustic panels are a great solution for that. You know, here's one more example, and this is where you've got this, you know, common area, common meeting space outside of maybe some large meeting rooms, for instance, in this facility. It could be a convention center or whatever, but you've got travertine floors, concrete, glass, steel. It's just like this would probably be just an absolute cacophony if you had people empty out of these meetings and they weren't going to be around in this reception space without some level of treatments. Again, here they've done some of the cloud panels, but you can also see examples on the far right and at the far end of the room where these were stretch fabric, tracked, built on site type of acoustic treatments that not only add a visual element, because you can build it pretty much whatever you would like it to be like, mix and match different fabrics in there, but then indeed create the right kind of treatment in behind that. So couple more quick examples. Large meeting room spaces, certainly a lecture hall like this would be, even the seats in this place are hard surfaces. So if I'm the professor up front, I'm really appreciating all of the acoustic panels that went into here. School gyms, again, we've all been in one. If you've been at a high school gym and there's a basketball or a volleyball game going on, you just know what a crazy environment that can be for sound. Putting some acoustic panels in there can really help that situation, because those gyms are used for all kinds of things. But even using that as an example, there are very specific panels, high impact panels that can go in there, help the sound, but deal with people bouncing or balls or whatever bouncing off of it, that type of thing. So lastly on this here, there is also products that have been developed now to add a visual appeal. So designers and architects are going like, I love that look, but it's also helping deal with the acoustics that are in that space. So I think that pretty much wraps us up on this. I'll just sort of quick recap. If you're doing electrical, AV is potentially a really great add-on to that. So, you know, it is, electrical is obviously in every project, and you're already there and you already have a seat at the table for these projects. You know, AV installations can add significant profitability to these projects with free training and equal support. You know, your team can confidently, you know, learn, get up to speed, and potentially add AV services into what you're doing. You're able to say yes to these residential, commercial, and pro AV opportunities, and, you know, bring additional value to your business and your business relationship. So we're indeed here to help you succeed with this. I think we're just going to try and I'm running a little bit over here. So some of the brands that we brought on for AV, and these indeed tie in and mix with a lot of the brands that EECOL has done for years. You know, and these things all scratch each other's back. If you're needing networking product, if you're needing security cameras, you're needing a wire to connect all of this stuff up. right down to your lighting, neutron lighting and shades are often being put in the same places that you're wanting to deal with the AV environment. So that kind of wraps it up. Thank you. I've run a few minutes over here. I appreciate you all hanging in there and hearing what I had to say. I think we're going to turn this back over to Tara here, and I will get out of this. And I think we've got probably some questions lined up.
Thank you, Warren. That was amazing. A lot of great content for you to unpack. I think the primary message there is EECOL is here to help our customers, just like we do with every other product we have on our shelf. This is new for us, and it's exciting to add new products to our portfolio because we want to provide solutions to our customers. And that's really what it is all about at the end of the day, is full solutions for us and for our customers. We do have a couple of questions here in the chat, Q&A, pardon me. So if you do have more questions, please feel free, post them in the Q&A and we'll get to them. The first question, Warren, is, are all these products available to buy online? So I'm going to take that as perhaps eecol.com online, but maybe we could also spin it just retail online as well, if you could comment.
Well, I guess dealing from back to front, there are a few products here that would be available online. I mean, truly online as far as retail being able to buy these products, not from us, you know, but for instance, maybe some of the surround receivers and that type of thing, you know, that are available online, you know, a little less so, but typically more through retailers, for instance. But again, every single product line that we've brought in under the premise of we are a legitimate distributor, so there is usually the appropriate margin in there for there to be an installer involved in this, so that you are able to indeed buy from us, sell it, and be competitive out in the marketplace. So that would be one side of it. The other side is it's a little bit more of an ongoing solution that we've got. So because Tara mentioned, so much of this is new, there are a lot of products that are being brought into the mix here. It's taken the better part of this last year to bring a lot of these things on, and we are in the process of having this product brought available to our online, our portal, that type of thing. But then that even still requires a bit of clarification. The fact that, you know, most of these products, and that's why I mentioned so many times about the training and that type of thing, most of these products do need to be actually, if you will, turned on for specific accounts. And with that, that is where the training comes in. You know, we want to get people out there that feel comfortable doing this stuff, that know what they're doing. And then we are 100%, you know, through that process and ongoing, want to be able to be there to help and support you with this stuff. But it's much like doing your day-to-day, your electrical. You're not just going to print up some business cards and say, I'm in business and I'm out there, I'm going to do electrical. You're going to go and get your training, know what you're doing, and then you'll head down that path. So hopefully I answered that. I mean, for the most part, how it relates to us is, you know, the products will start showing up in the very near future as far as on EECOL's website and on, you know, potentially on dealer portals. The ability to access them and buy them will be governed by the specialist in each region, and that's where there would need to be, you know, a communication with him. If you're interested in going down this path, that we would work with you on that and try and make sure that you've got everything that you need to get up to speed, make sure you're trained and that type of thing. There are a handful of products that we brought in that are more general. So I mean, if there's guys that are already, guys and girls, guys that are comfortable with you know, doing some AV products, we have some that are sort of in general available. But as you see, some of these things can get a little bit more in depth and a little bit more sophisticated and that type of thing. And that's where, you know, we want to try and protect everybody from that whole scenario of knowing enough to be dangerous. We really want to make sure that, you know, you can be successful doing this, and we can be successful supporting you with that. So hopefully that answered all of that.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Warren. We have a couple more questions. So the next one is, and it ties into what you just said. Are there experts at EECOL who can help me choose the wires and speakers and other products? So essentially, how do our customers connect with someone if they're interested in any of these products? What's the process?
Well, again, I think Tara, and you can maybe describe that a little bit as far as the, where to go on the website to find, to find the people that they would need to reach out to specifically. But as far as it goes, it is just that. I think the very first step, and I have to say this, I was quite thrilled. I've got lots of years and lots of experience in this stuff, but I was quite thrilled when I came in and met a lot of the team, the data team that is working on the AV side of things to support this. We've got people right across the country that indeed have years of experience in AV. Some of it, some of it was indeed before they became involved with EECOL, but as far as that doesn't go away. They understand a lot of this quite well. So I think the very first thing would be is to indeed reach out to your your data AV specialist in the area, the region that you're at. And pose your questions, whether it's a application, whether it's a project, so on and so forth. If you feel that you've already got a decent level of AV experience, let them know that. But at the same time, if you don't, well, let them know that too. And like I said, we're happy to help. That's the whole thing, is we want to set you up for success. If you're going to do this, let's make sure that we're all doing it the same, pulling on the same end of the rope, if you will. So, but I think that would be the means. Tara, if you maybe want to, suggest as far as how to do that reach out in the regions.
Yeah, absolutely. On our website, we have branch locations, and if you click on that, you'll see all our 65 locations across Western Canada and into Ontario. And within that listing, there are the regional branches, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with. If you give them a call or pop into one of the branches and ask for a data specialist, they will be more than happy to help you with any of your inquiries. And that leads into our next question, which Warren, you have talked about, but does EECOL offer training? And I would like to add, like, specifically, what kind of training would we offer?
Okay, good. I'm glad people are asking, because that really is, that is the path to go down this channel here. So we've got some internal developed training, which we can do both in person and online, which is really, like I said, very early on. We'd rather start from close to the beginning and bring people through than make assumptions on anybody's part at where anybody's at. So we've got some training internally that is, just on the basics as far as how to know and understand both terminology and what some of this, what some of the knowledge points are that you need to start going down this path. And then beyond that, obviously, as we mentioned, you will start to see, and again, Terry, you can maybe mention, I know that's it's on the, I think what's on where we'll be publishing of this on the website. But you will start to see more and more training dates and schedules, and that will be indeed a full mix of product training, some live training, some hands-on training, some remote training. And again, our goal with this is because we've got manufacturers that are based as far wide as the UK and the US and all over the place. And so as we're doing all of these, we're also recording and building a reference library for training on this stuff, because again, a lot of us are busy working for a living throughout the day, and if we want to try and squeeze some training in, it might have to be in the evening or after hours. But so as again, a few of the slides showed, there will be a full mix of regional for hands-on probably, but lots and lots of training opportunities.
Thank you, Warren. I think we have time for one last question here. So how much lead time does EECOL need to help with a project for a design plan?
Yeah, a good question, but a bit of a loaded question. It really depends on what the project is. And what's involved in the project, so if we go from where we started at, some very basic residential stuff, Not a lot of time. It doesn't take that much for, again, depending on how basic it is, to, you know, assess what's needed. You know, the parts are there. We've probably got them even now in a number of locations. We've got them sitting on the shelf, and that can be turned around both from helping to lay it out to being able to take that out the door. But again, each step that you get a little farther along depends on the complexity, and that could be, again, residential, commercial. I would say, again, if it's something that you already do understand and you don't need training on, well, then it's probably, you know, a bit of the understanding of the construction process, which, again, most people are familiar with, when you need maybe the rough-in components for that, when you actually need any of the trim out or finished components for that job. So it's, again, it would just be, there's no one size fits all answer. Some of it can be really fast and really simple. I would just say same thing again. It's just reach out to the specialist in your area, the data AV specialist, and let them know what it is. What is the project? You know, if you have an opportunity for a project, but you do need some training for it, that's got to be factored in. Where just allow yourself some time to get up to speed, along with anything you physically need for the project.
Okay, thank you, Warren. We do have one last question, but we are out of time. So we will answer that question and it will be posted in the recording. But at this time, I would very much like to thank you all for attending. And Warren, great job. Thank you so much. And thank you for being part of our EECOL team.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you. And thank you to the whole team on the marketing side as well for helping us put all of this together. It's been a fun adventure. So last question, let's do that, and then we'll let everybody get on with their day.
Oh, we're actually out of time, Warren, unfortunately.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.